Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is Madam, and I'm coming back to you once again. This time, we're going to go over to EW.com, and this is an entertainment celebrity section. This is about actor Jack Merrill from Law and Order. He details being abducted and raped by serial killer John Wayne Gacy. Merrill said he woke up after being drugged by Gary and knew that he had to defuse the situation and act like everything was okay in order to survive. Now, I will list the article writer and all the rest of the details in the description, as I always do. The article starts off by saying Law and Order actor Jack Merrill is opening up about his harrowing account with infamous serial killer John Wayne Gacy. The 65-year-old wrote about being abducted and raped by the clown killer, who raped and murdered at least 33 young men and boys in the Chicago area from 1972 until 1978, and how the terrifying incident continues to shape his life in a People's article published on Thursday. In the piece, Merrill explains that growing up in a volatile family dynamic prompted him to move from his Evanston third home to Chicago by the time he was 17. He revealed that one night when he was 19, he was walking home from swimming at the local YMCA when a man pulled over and asked him if he wanted a ride. I thought I'd go around the block a few times, but he started driving quickly and turning into a really bad neighborhood, he recalled. He said, "Lock your door, it's dangerous." The man later pulled over and asked Merrill, was he gay, if he ever done poppers, a drug that, when inhaled, causes short-term euphoria and dizziness. He pulled out this brown bottle, splashed some liquid on a rag, and jammed it into my face, he wrote. I passed out, and when I woke up, I was in handcuffs. When the man took Merrill to his house, he understood just how intensely dangerous the situation had become. I was a puny 19-year-old. I knew I couldn't anger him. I just had to defuse the situation, act like everything was okay, he noted. That's the way I survived as a kid. We learned to lie low during my parents' rages. The pair drank beers and smoked pot together before the man put on a homemade contraption around Merrill's neck. It had ropes and pulleys, and it went around my back and through my handcuffed hands in a way that if I struggled, I would choke. I did at one point and started to lose air, he stated. He stuck a gun in my mouth. Then he raped me in the bathroom. I knew if I fought him, I didn't have much of a chance. I never freaked out or yelled. Merrill also wrote that he felt sorry for the man in a strange way, noting that he appeared not to necessarily want to be doing what he was doing, but he couldn't stop. He continued, We'd been there for hours. Finally, I could tell he was tiring. All of a sudden, he said, "I'll take you home." The man dropped the Merrill off at his original location around 5 a.m. the next morning and even offered him his number so that they could get together again sometime. He flushed the number down the toilet after he got home, but chose not to call the police because he wasn't aware of his attacker's murderous past at the time. It wasn't until he saw a Chicago Sun-Times headline about Gacy's crimes that Merrill realized he had been the one who assaulted him. Gacy, who buried the bodies of his victims in the crawl space below his home, was convicted in 1980 of murders of his known victims, with several still being in the process of being identified to this day. He was executed via lethal injection at the Statesville Correctional Center in 1994. Merrill called the newspaper to report his own assault, but hung up before sharing any confidential details because his father worked at the publication. I thought if the police needed my help, I'd come forward. They found all these bodies under the house, and years later, he was convicted, he wrote. But like I said, if they needed my help, I would have come forward, excuse me. In the aftermath of the encounter, Merrill made a pact with himself that he wasn't going to get past this and not leave my happiness in that house. He moved to New York City, where he began studying drama at NYU. Acting was therapeutic for me. He wrote, you're forced to express yourself, and there in some honesty that goes with that recognition and acceptance. Merrill, whose television credits include roles on Sex and the City, John of Arcadia, and Grey's Anatomy, noted that he's never undergone therapy in relation to the assault, but an episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show, in which a woman who had been great shared how she learned to forgive her assailant in order to move on, was very helpful to his healing process. While he has since forgiven Gacy and his parents, the assault is something that he continues to live with to this day. Don't get me wrong, I still face it. Our culture is obsessed with John Wayne Gacy, he wrote, recalling the haunted hayride that he once visited, only to find out it had a segment dedicated to Gacy that featured killer clowns and swinging weapons. Through the experience, Merrill, who is now in a loving relationship with his husband, wrote, he's come to understand that no one's trauma is greater than anyone else's. He continued, there is a lot of people who have had bad things happen to them. Many who have been great don't talk about it. I understand that. Until now, I've only told close friends, but during my new show, I walk through it every night. I am proud of my journey. I was able to learn from the bad and use it for good. I'm lucky. And that is the end of the article right there. Just basically, I've seen this article a couple of days ago, but due to life being life, I had to skip it until now. And I just basically want to touch on this article because it kind of highlights what I've been wanting to talk about in terms of all the things that are currently happening right now in the media with Sean Diddy Combs and Garth Brooks and many other celebrities that are being accused of things. Sometimes we tend to sensationalize this trauma that people had to go through, and some people do, but mostly people do not talk about how it impacted a victim's life, how the trauma and how they coped with it and how they got through it, the journey that they took. And I just feel that it should definitely be talked about. I'm pretty sure, just like every other victim that has suffered something similar to the events of him or anything, whether it be family, friends, or a total stranger, it's still to this day for some can relive it. And the fact that he didn't seek any therapy to help cope with the traumatic experience just speaks volumes to some people are able to do that. Some people do need therapy. Some people do need a support system. Even though he did not have therapy to help cope, he did have a support system and friends, which definitely helped him out, and he took inspiration from other survivors' stories, that he's seen. during his journey, his healing process. And, sometimes these events can dramatically alter a person's life. It's not going to be an easy process by any means. I spoke about this in terms of Cassie and what she went through, and many other articles that I did of people that have been violated in some form or fashion. It's just a culture of, people are just obsessed, period, with the, people are more concerned about that as opposed to what a person's been through. Now, I'm not going to say that it hasn't been people that have given outpouring to victims that have came forward and things of that nature. But, it just also highlights that men can be victims too. It's not just a gender specific thing. It could, it's not an age thing. It's not a demographic thing. It's not a class thing. This can happen to anyone. And for a person like